So, what would you say if your 14-year-old came to you and said that they wanted to start their own business? As an entrepreneur myself, I would be like, yeah, tell me what your idea is. And that is my guest today. She actually went to her parents at the age of 14 and said, I have an idea. Now, at 16 years old, she is a nationally recognized brand. And her reasoning behind her business, why she's creating what she is, and how she is keeping her business in the status that it is. The reasons behind it may surprise you, but they're also going to excite you. Today's episode is all about the young entrepreneur and how they are taking over. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Fox Talks Business Podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Fox, money mentor, business coach, and author. If you're a business owner who's been around the block but still feels stuck in the financial fog or hustling without getting real results, well, you're in the right place. Each week, I'm going to dive into money mastery, mindset shifts, and real-world strategies to help you grow and profit sustainably. You're going to hear unfiltered conversations, bold ideas, and practical, proven ways to start growing your business. So if you're ready to break past the plateau, make more, stress less, and have fun doing it, let's dive in. Hello, Foxy listeners. We are back. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have a really fantastic guest. As most of you know from listening to my podcast, I started a business really, really young and kind of went through this like weird phase, which go back to like old episodes and you'll be able to see it. So I have a very soft place in my heart, especially for Canadians, but also for females, especially when they start entrepreneurship young. And I have one of the best youngest ones that I have seen in quite a few years. I'm going to boast. You heard a little bit about it in the intro. But Chanelle, first, I want to say thank you so much for taking time to meet me on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So let's give a little bit of background because you actually started a lot younger. Well, I mean, I started pretty young, but I'll say not legal businesses. So, but you did. So tell us a little bit about your story of how this kind of all started. And please make sure that you put in those ages there for people.
Absolutely. So I started at 13 and I've always had a passion for bling and sparkle. I think my mom always dressed up and always was wearing jewelry and she just was always blinged up from as long as I can remember. So I think that kind of started that idea. And my dad's an entrepreneur. He's in the construction field. So I think watching him grow his company kind of both interconnected those two ideas for my jewelry business.
And were your parents always entrepreneurs? Like, did you just kind of grow up and that was sort of normal to you?
My mom worked, but my dad was always an entrepreneur from as long as I remembered. So I think just like I said, watching him and, he's always with the guys and working. And I was always, instead of going to daycare or whatever, I was always with him on job sites. And I think that grew the idea even more for entrepreneurship.
Well, and I think this is such a big thing because we're seeing more of this in the years, now, especially because I am a lot older than you are, but that's okay. But we're seeing it a lot more. And I even see it, in my own son is that to him, entrepreneurship is like easy because he was raised in that. That's all he knows. His mom's always been an entrepreneur. That was just like, he learned to walk in a store that I had. Like, it was just like, isn't that where most kids learn to walk? Right. And so I think that kind of lends, a different perspective on what it's like to kind of own your own business. So when you kind of hit that 13 and you were like, okay, well, maybe I want to do something, talk to us a little bit about what, how did that idea formulate? And then how did you kind of bring that, I'm assuming, to your parents and kind of say, hey, this is what I want to do?
So at 13, I really had the idea. So I was just playing with my mom's jewelry mostly and putting designs and colors together. And then that's how that idea grew. And then 14, I kind of started selling on Facebook Marketplace. So one person coming a house to the day turned into 20 people coming a day. And I came to my dad and my mom and I said, I think I might have a real business out of this. So when I was 14 and a half, my dad said, you know what? Let's do some trade shows. So we have a small town in Saskatchewan called Warman. So I did my first show there. I was 14 and a half. And then it kind of we got great feedback and it took off. And I think that's when we both realized that what I had going was really nice and really good. And I think that's when he said, you know what, go full throttle, book all the shows you can, go all across Canada and have fun and get your name out. And then that's when I turned 15 last year, it really took off when I was 15.
And so talk to us a little bit about what that jump was, because of course, you're doing this, you have fantastic support and entrepreneurial parents, but you're also trying to now juggle, I'm assuming, school, just being, trying to be a somewhat normal teenager, if that can even be, a terminology, and trying to like grow this business and understand what that all entails. So talk to us a little bit about that journey.
Absolutely. So I started doing lots of just hometown shows in Saskatoon. So going to lots of Christmas markets, and that was when I was 15. Then when and before a couple months before I turned 16, we did a whole Canada-wide tour. So we went to Toronto and Vancouver and Calgary and Ottawa and all these other different cities. And you know, with school, I always kept up with school. My dad always said, school's your main priority. If school's not going well, then the business is not going to keep going. So I'm in the high 90s, so I made sure school was well, and then I could focus on the business. And of course, you have to have great time management. You have to have your priorities with both. And I think when I traveled, I did billboards. We did a billboard campaign in Saskatoon, and we did radio campaigns. So I think it all just kind of mushed together, and it all just worked out perfectly.
So for you, in kind of going through, this journey, what are some of the obstacles that you face that, you kind of were like, oh, wow, I didn't realize this was a thing. Or maybe you were like, gosh, this was like really, this was hard to overcome.
I think when we were so small at first, it was, you go to a couple shows and it's a little easier at first. And then when we got a little bit bigger, it was like during Christmas time this last season, it was like a whole wind in your face. It was lots of orders. And of course, it's me and, my dad helping, but it's mostly me doing everything and lots of posting and packaging orders. And it's lots of time management too, because there's lots of tests at school you have to take care of and assignments. But I think I have great time management. And two, there's going to be lots of hardships in business. Not everybody's going to be happy with your product, and there's always ups and downs. But I think if you keep pushing forward and you have the ambition and drive to keep going, you can achieve whatever you would like.
And so for you, what was one of the things that you know, are very grateful that you had? Like, was it that your dad was an entrepreneur? Did you have a different type of mentor that was able to sort of help you navigate what that's like? Because selling online is, you get everybody's opinion as you do in business, which is hard enough as an adult, but sometimes can be a little bit harder when you're younger.
So I think the number one thing that really helped me was my support system at home. My mom and my dad always helping me achieve things and going around Canada and making sure that everything was well with with my school and business. But I think it's also my support system at school. Some days I have to miss for shows, but I think the teachers are really good with making sure I understand the material and they understand what I do when I'm out of school and my entrepreneurship. So I think having both being grateful for both coming together and making sure everything's going well for me.
And to get that to happen, was it a lot of you like communicating, look, this is really what I want to do and I need your support, to make both of these worlds kind of happen at the same time?
Yeah, it's lots of going back and forth and communicating, but I think too, when you achieve little things and then they go to big things, I think my dad, I don't think he thought much of it at first about the business because, when your daughter comes up to you at 13 years old saying, I have this idea, you don't think much, but I think even my mom too, they didn't think much. And then when we started getting bigger, going across Canada, doing more shows, more interviews, I think that's when they realized, she's going somewhere, she's doing something. And I think you want to support your children more when they are achieving more. And I think the teachers are the same way. They want to help me achieve lots of things. And as a teacher, that's what you want to see. You want to see your students grow and achieve more. And I think both when I were doing more and going more places, they both wanted to help more. And it really helped when I did expand even more.
So do you find that has there been any, I'm trying not to lead as I ask this question from my own experience, but did you find that you've had some obstacles that maybe you wouldn't have, but just due to your age, whether that's being like sort of taken seriously or people being like, well, that doesn't make any sense, or, kind of thinking this is a hobby, sort of thing?
Well, I do have a little story. So when I wanted to do billboards in Saskatoon, I was 14. So Phil from Patterson, I phoned and I said I want to do a campaign, and he says, "Oh, I don't really have kids phone me about to do a big billboard campaign." So he phones my dad right away and he says, "I have this 14-year-old girl on the phone here, and she wants to do billboards, and it's hard to be taken seriously at a young age, but when you have that drive and you want to do something, and I think you can achieve many things." So my dad went to talk to him, and he met us. We were in his office, and when you meet me, I'm mature and I'm a little bit different, and you can see my idea and my mindset. But I think being a young entrepreneur and a female entrepreneur in general, you have some setbacks in business, and you have to overcome those setbacks. And I think once you explain your story to people and your passion and your mindset and what you see your achievements and your goals for your future, I think people want to help you, and they come together and they do help you with that.
And so as you kind of started doing like the larger portion of it, moving into tours and actually going across, Canada and doing all of that stuff, there's a lot to that in just doing shows, not only having the mass amount of merchandise and stuff like that, but also learning the sort of behind the scenes. What was one of the hardest things for you to kind of wrap your head around? Like, was it financing? Was it, supply and demand, all of that kind of stuff? Was there something that you were like, oh, yeah, I really had to, figure this out a little bit?
Well, there's lots of things just before behind the scenes, but even booking a show, you have to think how many shows are that weekend, where can you go, you have to book hotels, you have to do flights, and you have to have product on hand. And I think what really surprised me was going to shows like Calgary, where we sold out almost in that was our first out of town show. And I think I never realized that my product could sell that fast. So I think it's really keeping that product going. And, you have to keep more product for the next city, and you have to get different designs and new arrivals so people are interested. And I think if you really have that, you have to have priorities. Like I said, you have to make sure your supply is good. You need to make sure all your shows are booked, and you need to make sure your customer service is going well, and your packaging orders and school is going well as well, all together.
And so for you, like when you were sort of, you have this product going, people are, really enjoying it. You're kind of building this client base of people. And, social media is such a big thing. And you're of the age where you were kind of like, I'm sure born into that. Like,
Yeah, growing
Google,
into it basically.
when I started Google, I started before Google, just to kind of give you when I was starting. So do you find that has helped you, and the fact that you just have that natural ability to understand social media and to be able to use it to your advantage on an entrepreneurial standpoint of it?
I would say I'm very grateful for social media, because that's how we started out, posting on Facebook Marketplace. And then when we got bigger, we were posting, paid ads on Facebook and getting out there on Instagram. And I think when we had a really strong online presence, that's when I started doing billboards and C95 in more traditional ways. But if I wouldn't have done more social media, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to do other advertising. So I'm very grateful that Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and posting and getting my name out allowed me to get the clientele that was focused to my brand.
So for you, tell us a little bit. So this is kind of like a two-part question, because I want you to tell us sort of where your business is right now. And then I want you to tell us like what you see going ahead in the future. Like, where are you wanting to take this?
So right now, where my business is, we're really online, but at more shows across Canada instead of just in Saskatchewan. We're going to BC and Alberta and Ontario, and now we're expanding into New Brunswick and Newfoundland for shows. So that's where we are right now. But what I see in my business is I don't want to get into retail stores or having more employees, because then our prices would have to go up. And that's when me and my dad, when we sat down and we started the business and we started thinking about pricing and strategy, we looked at our competition, and they were about 4 times our price. There was some other companies in Saskatchewan who were twice our price, and we wanted it to be affordable for everybody. So even a girl at McDonald's making minimum wage could afford a pair, because if you go to our competition, you need a $100 bill. For the same pair of earrings for us, it's $20. So that was our strategy. If you don't have any overhead, you don't have those big high margins to pay for everything, you can keep your prices affordable. So that's what we wanted. So when I think about when asking your questions, I don't want any more stores or more employees, but I see us even expanding into more shows and more podcasts and more interviews and just getting our brand out all across Canada, not just Western.
Well, and I love this because I think, quite often in, throughout my whole life of business, that has always been the attainable dream, right? Get as big as you can, as fast as you can, get to as many places. So for me, I think it's very refreshing that you are really thinking about who your ideal client is and going, my ideal client doesn't want to drop $100 on a pair of earrings. I want everybody to be able to enjoy this. I want everybody to have a little bit of sparkle and a little bit of bling in their life.
Yeah.
Is that sort of, has that always kind of been the key when you first started as it is now, that you wanted this to always be an affordable brand for everybody?
And that was my mission when I started. I wanted it to be affordable for everybody because I see a huge gap in the market. You either have very cheap and not great quality earrings and you can get it for a cheaper price, or you have really good quality earrings, but they're super expensive. So what I wanted was to make a great quality earring which lasted through everything. That's why ours are waterproof and hyperallergenic and 925 sterling silver. You have those good components that make it high quality, but you also have the price which fits for every budget. And when you mush those together, you get a bigger clientele over Canada and more people can afford your earrings. For example, people with my business, they can buy four pieces of jewelry for the price of one at a competition. So you can even have more sparkle for less.
Yeah, I love that. So, I know that you had said like you have a bunch of shows and everything that are coming up, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I want to kind of go over, how while you were doing this, while you were building, and I'm meaning more after the fact of, you had done a couple of shows and you're like, hey, I think this thing is really taking off. Let's start expanding. What are some of the mindset shifts, if there was any, are there mindset shifts that you had to kind of make to kind of go, okay, I need to sort of shift how I'm thinking about this if I'm going to, go to this next level?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think at first, I've always had that ambition and drive, not even with the business, but at school, I always made sure I had good grades and always kept going with that. And I think I led that spirit to my business. And I think I was getting comfortable with doing Saskatoon and doing bigger markets. And my dad's more of a risk taker. And he said, you know what? You can expand even further into Canada and get your brand out to more people. So he was the actually one who said, so let's do Calgary, he said. So that was our big out of town show, was the National Women's Show in Calgary. And then when we had a really great feedback, I would say one of our best markets is Calgary as well. He said, I love doing what I do. I want to go to more places. So that's when we booked the Canada Wide Tour with the National Women's Show. And we did Toronto and Ottawa and Vancouver, and we got really good feedback with that. And we did the Calgary Stampede as well. And I think just getting that good feedback back and people, understanding the brand and hearing our story and loving our product made, when you achieve something, you want to achieve more. You want to keep going because you see people loving your brand. And I think that really pushed me to even keep going forward.
So if there was, looking back, because now you've been doing this a couple of years, but looking back over that, is there something that you're like, oh, I wish I would have known this sooner, or I wish I would have done this sooner? Is there something that you can think of for other young entrepreneurs? If somebody came to you and said, look, I have this idea, this is what I want to start, would there be one thing that you were like, let me tell you, let me give you a piece of advice, make sure you do blank?
Yeah. So when I first kind of started, I was posting on Facebook Marketplace, but that was really what we had for social media. I didn't have any Facebook accounts or Instagram, and we went right to the trade shows right away after that went well. So what I wish I would have done is I wish I would have got a Facebook account and an Instagram account for Chic and Charm, and I would have pumped that out so we had an online presence and then did trade shows, because we kind of just went with the trade shows and then we got clientele that way. But I think we could have grew even bigger when we started if I would have had both presences going 50-50 instead of just trade shows going at 80% and social media at 20.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's good because I think that happens, I mean, this is something as a business coach I see all the time, right? Everybody's like, I wish I would have done it a different way. But I think that's a really important thing for people to hear is, having that brand that is out there and a little bit established really, really helps you to kind of be able to take off after, because these days people want to be able to look you up, be able to
Yes.
search you, be able to go, is this a real person? Especially as we're getting into an era of like the Timus and,
Yes.
all of this other stuff that they're like, Lord, like I have, I've made mistakes. I've sent money, different places. So you're mostly in Canada now, but do you ship to the US? Do you ship anywhere else? Is that something that you're looking at in the future? Where are you with that?
So about a year ago, we were shipping to Chicago and New York and the U.S. states, and with what's going on with the U.S., we kind of stopped with our shipping there. But I do see in the next few years we will be shipping again to the U.S. and building our brand out there as well.
Well, that's great, because I think I've got a lot of US listeners. I also have a lot of Australian listeners. So usually when they put stuff out, I just always like to put it out on the roadmap. So tell us a little bit about now what you have coming up. So you said that you've done a tour, but you have some more places that you're going to be showing up. So tell us where people can go to actually find you, to buy stuff right now, and then where they can go to actually meet you.
Yeah, so for our shows, we have Calgary next weekend, and then we have shows in Saskatoon and Regina all booked in May. So we have PopCon and a Mother's Day market in Regina. Then we have a Canada-wide tour at the Rock and Gem Show again. So we'll be going to Kelowna and Victoria and Calgary and Edmonton. And then we have the Calgary Stampede booked. And then we're in between with Vancouver and Ottawa again, and New Brunswick we have for next year. So lots of different shows. But we have our online presence as well on our website, so you can shop on chicandcharmjewelry.com as well.
So we're going to make sure we have all of the links to where people can find you. And I just want to ask you a little bit of a personal question, but kind of related to your business. What is the one thing you're most grateful for that being an entrepreneur so young has given you an opportunity that maybe you wouldn't have necessarily had you not have started this? Is there something that you're like, gosh, I would never be able to do this had I not started this business?
I'm grateful for my dad mostly, showing me all the ropes and then helping me get it started. And I'm also grateful for the community and how much they supported me through the years. So what I did is when I got supported from the community, I gave back. So in the month of October, we have a radio station called C95 in Saskatoon. So I gave 20% back of our pink earrings proceeds to breast cancer awareness for that month. So when you get support, you have to give back a little bit because it makes you feel good and it's helping somebody else.
I love that. Well, I'm going to make sure that our community goes out and supports as well, because I really do think we all need a little bit of sparkle,
Yeah.
in our lives. We need a little bit of color. We need a little bit of sparkle. And if we can get both of those together, which we can in your stuff, tell us a little bit though about what, we've talked a little bit about the sparkle and all that other stuff, but let's go into describing what is your product line.
Yeah, so we sell crystal ball jewelry. So we have earrings, so hoops and necklaces, and we have bracelets, and then we do occasionally bring in some rings. And our product we have a 925 sterling base in all our products, and it's clay with Swarovski crystals over top that brings it that shine. And then we have a waterproofing that goes over all our jewelry, so it's always good for going swimming, going to the lake or in the bathtub and showering, and it makes it versatile for all day and everyday wear.
I love that. So I'm going to put some of my favorite pieces up for everybody because I have been snooping the website. I'm going to be having a cart here in just a moment. But thank you so much for coming on. And I love your story, not only because you're a young entrepreneur just sort of taking over the world, but what really drew me to you, and I want you to know this, is the fact of wanting this to stay affordable for people. I think that you are absolutely right in that, is that so often, we are inundated with make it big, make as much as possible, and we get out of reach really fast. And then there's this sort of like you said, there's this whole market that gets missed, and that market really likes to spend money. So I loved that about your story. And I was like, I need to have her on the show. So thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to make sure we have all of the links where you can find a little bit of your sparkle and color as well. And we're also going to list some of the shows where people can come and see you in person, because you attend all of these shows yourself, correct?
Yes. Me and my dad are always around.
Oh, and we need to, now everybody's going to want to know that. So we'll make sure that they're going to be like, we need to see the man that's behind this.
Yes.
So we'll make sure that we have all of that. And I would love to have you back on the show again to see where are you? How has it been going for you? And kind of get an update. Because I know a lot of people are really going to be excited to see like to just watch you kind of go. So
Absolutely.
congratulations on all of your success. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.